20th Century Fox is doing the Phoenix Saga again. Could they do it better than The Last Stand? Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix is the recent X-Men film written and directed by Simon Kinberg. This film stars James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Sophie Turner, Jennifer Lawrence, and Jessica Chastain. The plot this time is that instead in 1992, 9 years after the events of X-Men Apocalypse, the X-Men go on a space mission to rescue some astronauts. Unfortunately, during the mission, Jean Grey gets infected with solar flares that give her the Phoenix powers. When they arrive back on Earth, everyone is worried about Jean and see what they can do to help her. Now honestly, I wasn't really looking forward to this movie at all. This has been one of my least anticipated movies of the year. As for the X-Men films that focused on the younger versions of Professor X and Magneto, I thought First Class was great. I adored Days of Future Past. Apocalypse was fine. It was a bit of a step down compared to First Class and Days of Future Past, but it had its entertaining moments. I also did reviews of those movies weeks before the release of this movie, and if you want to hear my thoughts on those movies, I'll put links in the description below. I wasn't really excited that they're doing the Phoenix Saga again, right after The Last Stand didn't do it well. Honestly, I don't really dislike The Last Stand. I actually kind of enjoyed The Last Stand, although I can understand why some dislike that movie, but I know it has its problems, but I do find that an enjoyable film, but I will admit, it didn't do a good job with the Phoenix Saga. I honestly would have been fine if the X-Men franchise ended with Logan. I thought that was a perfect ending. Should have it ended there. I didn't really want the story to continue after Apocalypse. I would have been fine if it just ended with Logan. And the trailers didn't really get me excited for this movie. They didn't really do it for me, getting me excited about them doing the Phoenix Saga again. And along with the behind the scenes troubles of reshoots, the delays. This movie was supposed to come out in November 2018. They pushed back to February this year. Then they finally pushed it back to June this year. Along with hearing that test screenings were a disaster and some people were walking out. And also one of the trailers revealing a spoiler, and also that spoiler being confirmed by the director. I was extremely worried about this movie. I was not looking forward to this movie. I had my chance to watch this movie recently since I missed this film in theaters when it came out, but still went in with an open mind, just hoping to enjoy it. Watched it recently, just see what happens. Unfortunately, I didn't like this movie at all. I just thought it was a mess of a movie and a very underwhelming way to conclude the X-Men franchise. Well, I wouldn't say it's the worst X-Men film. I would say it's one of the weaker ones next to Origins Wolverine. I did not like this movie. To start off with the positives, there are some decent performances from the cast, and what I think is the best part of the movie is Sophie Turner as Jean Grey. She actually does a good job in this movie. She did a good job conveying emotions in this movie, the fear and pain she's going through, the vulnerabilities of the character. I thought she did a good job in this movie, and I think she's the best part of this movie. And like First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse, Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy are great in this movie. They still work at these characters. I still love their scenes together whenever they get to share chemistry. I love their conversations. I still love these two at these characters, which underwhelms me about this movie. I really wish these two were given a better film, a better script to go out on as these characters than this, because both McAvoy and Fassbender are two great actors. I love them as these two characters, and they made them so compelling throughout these movies. I wish they were given a better film to go out on than this, but they were still good in this movie. The rest of the performances, well, minus two performances from the cast that I didn't like. There are still some decent performances from Nicholas Hoult, Ty Sheridan, and many others. There are still some decent performances in this movie, along with some decent effects here and there that did look pretty good, and some entertaining action scenes in this movie. My two favorite action scenes in this movie were one, the space mission at the beginning of this movie. I thought that was well done, and along with my favorite action scene in this movie that takes place on a train, which is the climax of this movie, I thought there were many cool moments in that scene. Enjoyed that action scene that takes place on a train. I also liked Hans Zimmer's musical score in this film. It kind of gave me vibes of Interstellar. I thought it was a pretty good musical score. And that's about where positives end right there. And now let's get into the negatives. The two performances in this movie that I did not like in this movie. First, Jennifer Lawrence. She's bad in this movie. You could pretty much tell she did not want to be there at all and she just wouldn't be done with the character. She's just so wooden in this movie and she's just phoning in her performance. It was pretty obvious Jennifer Lawrence did not want to be there at all and just wouldn't be done with the character. Unfortunately, a performance that disappointed me was Jessica Chastain. Now I could see a lot of potential with this villain, a villain that could manipulate Jean Grey, and maybe it could be a menacing villain. I think there could be a lot of potential behind this, and also Jessica Chastain is a great actress. Maybe this could work, but it's wasted potential. I thought Chastain gave a very bland and wooden performance, along with her villain being a very uninteresting and one-dimensional villain in this movie. I was looking forward to seeing Jessica Chastain play a villain in an X-Men movie, but they really didn't do much with her villain. But I felt like there was just something they could have done with this villain, something interesting, but they just wasted it, and instead we just got a generic villain. And the villains of this movie, this alien group that can shapeshift, I didn't really care about them whenever they showed up. I didn't find them either interesting or intimidating. They were weak and generic villains. The effects in this movie are a mixed bag. There are some decent effects here and there, but there are just some effects that did not look good at all. And some of the CGI in this movie reminded me of the bad CGI in Green Lantern that just took me out of the movie. One thing I did not like about this movie was Professor Xavier's actions in this movie. Nothing to do with McAvoy's performance. He did good for what he was given to do. But as in terms of Professor X's actions and what he does to Jean Grey in this movie, I did not like what they did with that. And I just thought they made Charles Xavier in this movie a bit unlikable. I just can't believe how unlikable they made Charles Xavier in this movie. Just what he does to Jean Grey in this movie just made me dislike him in this movie. And also it felt a bit out of character for Professor Xavier could do. And when he does those things in this movie, I just thought, would Professor X really do something like that? It just felt a bit out of character for me. Again, McAvoy was good in this movie, but I just did not like how unlikable they made Charles Xavier in this movie. And one of my issues with this movie, they wasted Quicksilver in this movie. Quicksilver has become one of my favorite characters throughout these movies. He was a surprise scene stealer in Days of Future Past, and I'm glad they gave him a bigger role in Apocalypse. But he has minimal screen time in this movie. He's barely in this movie. Quicksilver doesn't even have a funny line or a memorable sequence like Time in a Bottle or Sweet Dreams. I can't believe they wasted Quicksilver in this movie. He was one of my favorite characters in the X-Men franchise, and they wasted him in this movie. Finally, my biggest issue with Dark Phoenix, I didn't really feel like this movie had a sense of finality to it. I honestly didn't really feel the stakes in this movie, that things are coming to an end. I didn't really feel that in this movie. This movie felt emotionally hollow to me. It didn't really leave an impact on me. And since this is the final X-Men film for Fox, well, unless New Mutants, but I'm not really looking forward to that, I never really felt like, oh my gosh, things are coming to an end, the stakes are high, there's some finality to this movie. I never really felt that throughout this entire movie. Wasn't really feeling that many emotions throughout this entire movie, unlike Avengers Endgame, which that had a sense of finality to it, and it felt like it was leading up to something, but it didn't really happen in this movie. It didn't really leave an impact on me. Overall, Dark Phoenix is a mess of a movie, and it's one of the worst X-Men films. While not the worst X-Men film, I would still say Origins Wolverine is the worst X-Men film, but this is honestly my second least favorite X-Men film next to Origins Wolverine. There are some decent performances and entertaining action scenes, and Hans Zimmer's musical score is good, but this movie just didn't have a sense of finality to it. The effects are a mixed bag. There are some hit or miss performances. I was really hoping the X-Men franchise, a superhero franchise that I've been a fan of for years, hoping that they would have a better film to go out on than this, and this movie really disappointed me. And overall, I'm going to give Dark Phoenix 2 stars out of 5. I didn't think this movie was very good. This movie comes out on Blu-ray and DVD September 17th. If you haven't seen this film and want to check this film out, sure, check it out. Interested to hear your thoughts. But I wouldn't really recommend checking out this film. I was hoping for something more with this final X-Men film from 20th Century Fox, but it just didn't do it for me, and when this movie ended, I was disappointed. So what do you guys think of Dark Phoenix? Do you agree? Disagree with me? Let me know below. Make sure to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you're new here. It really means a lot. I'm Jack Benner, and look forward to another movie review.